Yes.
I think because they're all together, they're all the grad students that are doing together.
Good morning. Welcome everybody to our facility committee meeting this morning. Nice to see so many people in the audience. I note that all board members are here as well as administrative staff that are needed. I need approval of the agenda.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. I have not received any public comments. Rebecca says no. So our first item is to talk about the Warrior Pitch fundraising update. Randy, Steve, are you gonna intro this? I think.
Sure.
Okay.
Good. Thank you, Joan. So in the notes that we put together for this agenda item, we mentioned the purpose is to share information regarding the fundraising efforts. We do have some community members representing the efforts here today that are going to talk a little bit about the process. One of the topics that we would like to talk about today is to revisit the conversation that's occurred in the past over the team center concept. We have evaluated the existing concession building for expansion. So one of the things that we wanted to know more about was what was the potential for the existing facilities that are there at the Warrior Pitch. A budgetary estimate for that expansion was between 350 and 450,000. Now that process took longer than what we were hoping for. We started that quite a while ago, and we were certainly hoping to have this agenda item in front of you earlier, but it just took a while to get that. Jay Thompson, who's here on a different agenda item, helped us update the budget for the original team center design. So this was back years ago, based on the previous drawings. And so that information is in the notes. What we have not yet explored though, is a different design for the team center that could have a lower cost. So we have not looked at like an alternative to the original set of drawings. So that's the information we have as of today. Dave Kettner's here to talk a little bit about this topic and interact with the board on where it's at. Just as a quick reminder before I turn it over to Dave, Warrior Stadium, so the football stadium, still has a balance back owed to the district from that project. Warrior Pitch has a balance of 0. So there is no funds owed to the district at all. In fact, there also was a recent payment made for the scoreboard. If you look and see the replacement scoreboard. So this project is a little bit different than the Warrior Stadium in that the repayment is still occurring. This one, it's done and it's been done for a while. So just to explain that there isn't any funds owed to the district, it's fully paid for. So Dave?
Yeah, thank you, Steve. And thank you, board members, for giving me the opportunity to visit with you yet again this morning. I think we started talking about, the concept of improvements to Warrior Pitch, a good 5-6 years ago, resulting obviously in the new surface that's there today. Very pleased to say, as Steve was indicating, that we as an organization, I think, have developed a very strong partnership with the school district as well as the community. We've raised to date almost $600,000, of which $525,000 has been provided to the school district to support the turf field, plus then also we paid for the scoreboard. Currently, we sit with about $95,000, in our bank account, and we have roughly $150,000 in outstanding commitments that are continuously being paid. The two lead donors in that regard are Summit Bank as well as the Waunakee Area Soccer Club. Very pleased also to share with you that pitch itself is getting significant use, not only from our men's and women's soccer programs, but also the community as a whole. I know that the Waunakee Area Soccer Club uses it both for practices as well as for games, and is a big part of their annual tournament as well. In addition, we've had the opportunity to host some outside activities there. When I was still coaching, I know we hosted the UW University of Wisconsin Superior team as they were heading down to the national championships. Did some practices there, and we've also hosted some other organizations across. So in other words, the pitch has been very, very effective. And I feel very confident sitting here today to say that we've achieved our goals and resurfacing that facility and building it to the point of where it's at today. But we're not done. When we launched this effort, there was two main things that we identified that we would like to do. One was obviously provide a safe and durable playing surface. That was the turf. And then the second of which was the team center. The team center itself, the concept, is really driven by the fact that neither the women's or the men's program have a locker room. They have no place where they can put their bags, their soccer bags during the course of the day. Oftentimes you'll see people walking throughout the school with two bags, their soccer bag plus their book bag, because there just simply is no place for them to put it. There's also not a training facility for our athletic trainer, out in the middle of the sports fields. And finally, there's really no place for our players to seek shelter in the event of inclement weather. And so the team center was born out of the concept of we need to be able to do something to provide for those athletes a facility that's going to accommodate them, help them throughout the school day in the sense of minimizing the materials that they have to carry around, and also provide a safe environment for them to escape to in the chance of inclement weather. And as we all know, soccer falls in the spring and the fall, which is when the greatest chance is of such weather to occur. So what we originally presented to the community when we started the fundraising efforts was a concept of a team center located on the side of the pitch, located where the player benches are today. And that has been a big part of our selling point moving forward. I do appreciate that the school has taken the effort to look at the concession stand and see what could be done there. But admittedly, being candid, that's just not going to work for what I think we're trying to achieve. And the reason being is because it only really accomplishes one of those three items that I talked about. From a accessibility for purposes of students going and being able to drop off their soccer bags and what have you and have that, it's just not accessible. And it's also not providing enough space for them to be able to do what we had hoped that we would be able to do there. Similarly, I think when you start looking at what we had hoped to put from an athletic training facility, the space is just not there, at least what was proposed for the concession stand. Yes, it is provide shelter, for purposes of inclement weather. However, a big part of having a locker room is for being able to actually coach in that locker room. The location of that facility over on the far side by the concession stand, as a former coach in that, would not be practical. And quite frankly, I probably will not use it for that purpose because you only have a short duration at halftime in which you can talk to the players. By the time that you get everyone together over there, you basically eliminated 50% of your time to work with the players. So I, as a coach, would probably keep them on the other side of the field, knowing that, we had a short window of time in order to make that halftime transition. So collectively as a whole, what we would like to suggest is that we open up the current design that was proposed for the team center located over by the player benches and see what we can do for purposes of bringing that cost down. I will candidly also say that I think that the last design that came forward, we are very pleased with the footprint, but the materials of construction that went into that design, probably could be looked at again in a different manner. I am surprised that to build a building such as this would cost you almost $1 million. Right? You could build a house today, a fairly sizable house for that amount. And we're talking about something which is significantly smaller than that. So what our request is for us to be able to launch this effort again and work with the school and the facilities team itself and look at what is the possibility of doing something at that location that's going to meet the needs of the school, meet the needs of the student, while also bringing it into an area where we think is most cost effective for this effort. In addition to that, it's no secret that I no longer live in the community. My wife decided to sell her house. Well, I'm sorry, my wife and I decided to sell our house. And I'm also no longer with, coaching in the district. Also, some of the members of our OCOG, so the One Community, One Goal fundraising, their kids have now moved on as well. So we are also in the effort of being able to build up this, our fundraising group and passing it off to the next group of people. And part of that is also, sharing a vision for what can the pitch do, in a whole. There are some other things that need to be attended to, at the facility to really kind of take advantage of the investments that we have made today. First and foremost, besides the team center, we have a press box, that, is, very sturdy, you can say, but the stairs going up to it are not sturdy. In fact, it creates somewhat of a safety hazard if you look at the condition of those stairs today. It's also not really conducive for soccer in the sense of there's a big old piece of block or several pieces of block smack dab in the middle of two windows. And it's very difficult to actually look out and watch a soccer game progressing forward. The school district has done a fantastic job of promoting video. It's fun and it's enjoyable to be able to watch, the games on video, but it's getting a little busy up there, so to speak. And so we would like to suggest that we revisit the press box and see what can be done to improve upon that as well. In addition to that, the fencing around the field, I think we all know it's at least 5 degrees colder and 5 miles per hour windier, if not more, up on the top of the hill. It would be beneficial to put in a nice fencing around it so you can put in windshields or wind fencing, wind screens. Thank you. That would help with management of the field itself. And so there's a long laundry list of things that we think that investments could be made, within the pitch, and we would like to support that. And so as a result of that, what we are doing is we're building out our organization even further and providing longevity moving down into the future so that those people who started this effort, as we move on to our next thing, there's going to be a succession and there's going to be long-term support for this effort moving forward. So we are in the process of building that. What it would be nice to do is as we are recruiting people to have that is to have a very strong story. And that strong story is about, well, what are we trying to accomplish at the pitch? And so again, coming back to the ask today is for us to have, your support to begin moving forward with that process, looking at what can we do to continue to support the soccer program at the high school and in the community. First of which would be, focused on the team center and providing a new drawing, new concept and design to support that effort. And then secondly would be looking at these other items and seeing what we could do to support those as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Speaking on behalf of the board and the school, I so appreciate your efforts and what we have raised and the money you've raised and given to our schools. And I hope that we can, somehow continue to work with this.
Thank you.
Hey, just follow up on Dave. That's part of I've been on the boys booster side for soccer and now currently president on the girls side. And I'll just reiterate on just a couple of quick topics on Dave's there. Being involved up there and knowing the situation, the team center, if you just look at location of the concession versus where we're proposing, just think about that storm that does come and kids are over the other one, the parking lot is so much closer to the team center. And I just think that's a huge part is, so even if it is downpouring rain, hailing, and it's not a tornado, it's still, they have to get all the way across the pitch. We maybe secured them in a safe place, but now to get to a vehicle to actually leave and go home, it's just so much further away. And I mean, I was involved in refixing the benches or the tabletops in the concession because one of the storms, all the kids went in there and it was so packed, they sat up on top of the benches, the tabletops and stuff like that. It just, obviously if you build it bigger, it would have more room, but that's what we have for right now for them to go to safety. And I think, there's the good part of that there. And to reiterate on the press box, we're now at a point of, there's windows that are broken up there. There's duct tape holding windows together. I just think it's something that needs attention. But I do think the team center is the biggest goal, because we have these funds and there's people out there that. The position I'm in, a lot of people contact me, you know, want to know what's going on with our funds, and. To the point of like some people that are an annual donator, are like, I want to hold off until something starts to come in the works, and then maybe I'll double my, you know, donation. And I think that's where we're at right now, is to hopefully get something going so that we keep that energy that we first started about the Warrior pitch and the team center. And I think if we can get that energy going quicker here and have something happening on that, I think we'll have good support from our community and the soccer community. So I just want to reiterate some of those things on the, Dave mentioned them, and I do see them firsthand. I do understand that it's, you know, there's a budget on everything, but the fact that we've raised some funds and we have them there to help in this project. Thank you.
I think a couple of things we're probably looking for from the committee this morning is, one is just per our policy, for us to move forward with projects and planning, we do need support of the board. That's really for our policy for any sort of facility improvements. They've done a phenomenal job and have shown that, as Dave has already articulated, with the work that they've completed. I think the pieces that I would want us to look at is certainly some of the things that they have for additional fundraising and some of the additional design that they're talking about. See what that would even look like, so we have something to respond to. But also, I think a piece that we have, and this would be kind of Steve's job and my responsibility, would be to take a look at some of the things like the press box, the stairs, etc., and see some of those from a maintenance standpoint, and what's, you know, the district's responsibility too, and some of that work, and kind of bringing some of those aspects back so you can get a bigger picture of that. But I think in order for us to do that, for our policies on kind of particularly from an outside group looking at improvements, I think we do need some action of the board to at least give us the green light to move forward with some of that planning. It doesn't approve any of the projects. All of those have to still come back for final approval. But at least that gives you an idea of what you're responding to versus kind of what's the concept.
One of the things that we talked about is looking at the concession stand, making that bigger, because, you know, in combination of equipment and so forth, we've never really, or I don't remember hearing anything on what concepts could be done there. And how much that might cost. You know, I know we talked about being far away from the parking lot because you know, inclement weather, but you know, if somebody can drive home in the middle of a tornado or hailstorm, things like that.
I think part of that is that's the $350,000 to $400,000, but we haven't brought the plan for that back to you.
Yeah.
But that's the cost of that Steve and I've kind of worked with our partners on to put together that expansion. There was a thought initially that you could not expand it, but that we found was not accurate. So there are options to expand the current concessions area. And I think it's probably a matter of trying to look at from my perspective, take a look at the whole thing. So you can then make some decisions as far as what's the best route forward.
I would like to see, you know, when you look at the team center at a lower cost, like Dave said, let's look at those costs, you know, is that a possibility to bring that back and plan for what the expansion of the concession stand? I think we just need to see that.
Some of the concepts we talked about, I think the team center that's been costed out as a block building versus right now we're in a metal building. I mean, is there different ways that we can kind of look at different approaches to some of the construction that may bring some of the costs down and make it more reasonable? But we don't have that number at this point, and we haven't explored that. So those are a few things, I guess, from our perspective. Is one is looking at kind of where they're at for the fundraising. Two, looking at some of the projects that are and some of the options that might be available out there. I think from our perspective that there makes some sense to do something that addresses particularly the need for shelter. We've addressed that. We've had some issues with that. I mean, people who are attending the games can go to their cars. Players don't necessarily have that option. So it's trying to figure out how you do that. So I think there are some things that we have a joint interest in looking at. I would hope that we could, support being able to go through some further investigation into what these look like and bring all these options back so you can see what they look.
You know, I guess as we go forward with this project, I mean, you know, obviously. It's janitorial service. You know, we can't keep our janitorial stuff. You know, so we're putting that in another off-site location. You know, so I think, you know, this is bigger than just building buildings. You know, we gotta look at, you know, the long-term costs. What are the districts that can be responsible?
And with that being said, I think that when we put in when the turf was put in, that eliminated some of that upkeep that we needed for watering and mowing and things of that. I mean, it's all a balance, and I would agree that I think it makes most sense to look at what all of our options are. I mean, it sounds like our parents have, and this community have supported this initiative. And I think that it makes the most sense to understand what all of our options are, to see what would be the best option that would be supported by the community. Looks like we've got $250,000 raised, almost 95,000 secured, and 150,000 outstanding. And so I think it's in the best interest of the students to determine what all of our options are.
Just a quick note too, the center of our operations for grounds is in that building as well, so all the equipment in order to be held in that building would be displaced if we went with the expansion option. So we would need either to trailer all of our equipment from here or another building for our stuff that we use for grounds.
And
This with the current plan, like Randy said, you guys haven't seen that, so.
is there a need to also look at what softball means in that space? You know, we got softball fields sitting there, and, you know, you're looking partly at safety for kids. You know, we have all kinds of athletes in that space, so I think we need to look at a big picture and all of them. Maybe it all can be. How this thing that would be.
I think to expand on that discussion, let's get a look at all of them. I think we talked about an overall master plan for the facilities, but I mean, you know, that hasn't come forward as well. I think that discussion has been several times.
I would agree with that, Jack. I think that was part of our conversation when we met with the soccer folks, was with regards to kind of what is the master plan for that? What does that look like? I mean, there's a great deal of conversation going on with like, what does the high school expansion look like? And what does that renovation look like? I mean, part of that has a limiting factor as far as how we can go, because we're not contracted with our architects to design that yet. And so a lot of it is very conceptual from an administrative standpoint with some input from our other partners. But that is definitely a piece that we are considering. Some of that involves athletics as far as like, what do we do with locker rooms, et cetera, that are in the center of our school, that we have to really have a lot of custodial help to just make sure that we maintain on most of our Friday nights in the fall. So those are all things that I think are taking place to look at. The one piece that's a little different with where we're at with and I'd kind of lump baseball, soccer, and softball together as kind of the outlying fields. And so they're not necessarily adjacent right to the current high school. So that's a piece that we do have to try to take a look at. But I would hope that we can kind of start to bring back and at least have a kind of the green light for us to go ahead and kind of start to put together what a master plan like that might look like, so that we can bring back some of the options, the $350,000 options, show you what that expansion to that concession stands look like. Give them an opportunity to take a look at what an alternative team center might look like, and then see how that works with the adjacencies to the other fields and around it. Then we can make some decisions based off of that. But I also think that, I mean, from my perspective, if we have issues with some of the pieces going into or around the press box, that's some things that are our responsibility to make sure we take care of, and we should assess those. And that's a piece we talked to John and the team about to put onto our list.
And I would agree with that. That in the press box, we should get those.
Right.
When stairs are unsafe, we should get them fixed.
Right.
So that's part of our facility.
What do you want from us this morning? Just the
I
support
think-
to move forward?
I think what, I mean, if we try to look at kind of this as kind of a master planning piece, we want to make sure that we're all informed on, I guess I would have a recommendation from this committee to the board to move forward with the planning aspects of this, and anything need to be brought back here from a conceptual basis and a costing basis before anything can move forward. That allows this group kind of an opportunity to keep their work going, and it gives us the direction to kind of do some of the assessments in the longer range planning that I think is needed on our.
So what you're asking us to do is go forward with the plan, let them continue their fundraising, which means that we're ultimately approving this right now. Because, you know, if the board doesn't agree, you know, with the concepts and so forth, and, you know, these guys have done a wonderful job of raising $800,000.
If you're not comfortable with the fundraising piece, I think we at least need to do the planning piece to that, because I think that's the piece that has to come back.
I agree with
There's-
you.
And I think there's some other things and that's probably, maybe that's part of what we have to bring back is kind of the assessment of it. And you know, Dave brought up the pieces with the fence and some of those other items. Those are some things we have to take a look at, because putting some of the screening on the current fence, I don't believe has the wind load to be able to handle it. So we'd have to kind of take a look at how that can be accomplished. So I think that's part of what we need to bring back initially. We can do so, but I mean, certainly there's, and I think that's, you know, the policy that we have right now on improvements talks about that has to be a proposal for what we're actually looking to have fundraised for. So if you want more detail into that, we can bring you that. But I think at a minimum, we need the green light to move ahead with putting those plans together to bring back.
Well, I agree with the plan.
So you want a motion?
I'd like a motion for us to move forward with the plan.
Motion to move forward with the planning.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank
Great.
you very
Thank
much.
you, appreciate it.
Next on the agenda is looking at an update on the schedule that we have on the elementary school.
So we'll ask Jay to join us up in front. If you wouldn't mind. Jay's gonna primarily talk about the next item, but obviously we may have questions for him about this one as well. So yesterday we had our every other week meeting at the new Heritage School. We do receive continual reports on both the schedule and the finances. Regarding the schedule is still aligned with the July 31st date. That has not changed. All of the work that's going into the school is designed around continuing to seek that as a target. So our update as of yesterday was everything remains on schedule for July 31st. As far as the finances, Rebecca, if you wouldn't mind pulling up the contingency tracker there. No, I'm sorry, the document that was attached in the board book. Yeah, that right there. Thank you. If you wanted to scroll down to the bottom of it. So you've seen this at every facility committee meeting. We continue to provide information to you on how the project is going from a financial standpoint. The column in the middle with the large number, the 2.6 million, is the construction manager's contingency. The number to the right is what we call an owner's contingency, and the owner's contingency, as a reminder, was really created out of the value engineering items that Vogel brought to us during the process. That created an additional, call it pot of money, additional savings that are available as we go throughout the project and make potential changes. If you view the two of them together, you can see that, you know, now that we're into January, the project from a financial perspective is incredibly successful. If you remember, we already pulled funds out of Heritage months ago when the final guaranteed maximum price for the school was established. We pulled those funds out and moved them over to the maintenance side. As you can see from the financial report, things continue to go very well at the school, and we anticipate that we will not use anywhere near the level of contingency that currently is being carried for the school. Jay, do you have anything you want to share about the new school while we're on it?
Yeah, just in terms of maybe building on schedule and contingency, you know, we're really close to having the roof completed and the building enclosed, and that's one of the major milestones that you look at a construction project. It's getting out of the ground. There's a bunch of unknowns there, and then it's getting the building enclosed. Obviously, we're in winter, so the faster we can get that enclosed, I think we're in winter. So from a contingency standpoint, really what I would see the remaining risk is going to be mainly scheduling. So it'd be if we need to have crews work overtime in terms of hitting the schedule, if we have any delays in terms of materials or equipment. We're not hearing anything right now, so not trying to worry the district, but from that perspective, that's really the remaining risk in terms of financial performance. As Steve alluded to, we feel really good about the things currently sit, and we've got a really good plan in place, and the plan's been done.
Any questions for Jay on the new school and the Heritage? If not, Rebecca will jump into the middle school. So we appreciated the conversation at the December committee meeting. The feedback we received from the facility committee was to proceed with planning for 2024 with the concept of maximizing our interest earnings and looking at options to meet the IRS spend on requirements, and specifically this agenda item regarding the new middle school and the purchase that Jay's about to describe is not related to the February 1st spend down requirements. It's related to the August 1st, 2024 spend down requirements. So we're planning ahead, looking at what options we have available to us to meet the August 1st, 2024 spend down requirements, and the middle school needs to be a part of that calculation. We're not going to make it with just expenditures on Heritage or maintenance. So we've been working with Vogel on this for a couple of months and preparing for this possibility. So Jay has brought forward an idea that he wants to share at this meeting. So I appreciate you being here. Rebecca, you can at some point open that attachment up, the one that says notice. No, I'm sorry, the other one. The one that says notice to proceed. And Jay, if you wouldn't mind, tell us what we're looking at here and what's this concept about.
Yep, so as Steve alluded to, I've been having a lot of discussions specifically with subcontractors that are already on the team in terms of the spend down, and is there ways we can potentially purchase long lead equipment, materials prior that we could pay for prior to that July deadline.
Just reading that question, do we have to have it committed or do we have to spend?
By August 1st, it would have to be spent out the door.
So throughout those conversations, I've been talking with Sam over at Endress and the last couple months, and the joists and deck. So the joists and deck are what support your floor and your ceiling. That's material that Endress actually buys from a supplier. They don't actually fabricate that part of the building. Waunakee, it's purchased through a supplier. And in that industry right now, those suppliers are really aggressive. So as I started to talk to Sam about the ability to pull some of those costs in forward for the spend down, he was letting me know where that market's at. To give you some context, from like April of 24 till when we took these numbers in November, it's down about 20%. Which on 1.75 million, you know, that number was probably about 2.1, 6 or 7 months ago. So I said, well, we need to plan to spend down, and if you're telling me we think we're maybe saving a couple $100,000, like, when can we buy these? And so the drawings were in a spot by November that we felt strongly enough, they were close enough to be complete for this specific scope, not obviously everything. And so he took hard bids a couple weeks ago, and all of the numbers he got were good through the first of the year. I told him we needed to come in front of you today and then the board meeting next week. So he's gotten those to be held until the middle of next week. And so right now, what we're proposing is that we would get a notice to proceed by the school board meeting on Monday. So then the following day, I would turn around and issue a piece of paper to Andrus to cut these loose. To not only help with the spend down situation, but also see savings with this specific scope.
Sounds like a win-win.
So you give them the purchase order now with delivery.
And we still have to work out those details. We may end up taking delivery before we actually need it. But if, in terms of the existing heritage site, the new middle school site, the geothermal work is gonna happen where the current field is, the football field. That work's not gonna happen until the following summer, so summer 25. So we should have some additional laydown space where, whether it's the joist and deck or other materials that we made pre-purchase for laydown requirements, we'll be able to store those on site. There may also be some situations where we have stuff stored off-site, but we are provided with insurance delineated. They're labeled, there's pictures, it's delineated, to be able to help with the spend downs. But in this case, we'll likely take delivery in early July and just have them a couple months before we actually.
So we need a motion to move forward with this. Is that what you- So a motion to move forward.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Jay, for working.
So one other thing just related to this, so final drawings are gonna be to us end of February. So we'll have bids due probably end of March, and that late April, early May is probably when we'd be in front of you in terms of here where the GMP is at. But we'll probably have 2 or 3 of these between now and then, just as we can take advantage of some of those items and try to hit that spend.
Is this one item take care of the spending?
So this one, it's a great question. So Jack's question is, does this one take care of it? It all depends on all of the various factors together, like the contingency at Heritage, which looks like right now it's got a large balance. The maintenance projects that we bring in front of you, this type of an expenditure plus others, in total, we have to get 75% expenditure out of the 99 million plus borrowing that we had last January by August 1st. So that's the target, plus the interest. We have to spend 75% of the interest. So amongst the various projects, they have to add up together to get to that dollar amount. Ally and I have been working with Jay on a pretty extensive spreadsheet project to track all of these different, if you want to call them projects or buckets of money, and what they will look like through the next, year or so or beyond. And it's trying to get all of them together to total up. And so, like I mentioned, the middle school is a part of the solution, as well as maintenance projects will bring, but then also Heritage. At some point, we're gonna want to have the conversation, which we've already started. How long do we hold on to a contingency of that size at Heritage before becoming comfortable either seeing the bids at the middle school? That might be the date that we're comfortable that the middle school's in good shape, or maybe a little bit after that, when we feel comfortable looking at additional maintenance projects. Thank you for asking.
I think in terms of what Steve and Ally and I've been working on, I'm gonna bring other items like this just to maybe give us a little bit of a cushion too, Jack, so not scrambling in the summer and. There's things we can pre-purchase, and then if we can pre-purchase and take advantage of some better pricing, you know, it's a win for the district.
So you see, you know, just more of a general, are the costs coming down?
It's weird, because as I've been talking with Sam, Sam's like, I couldn't figure this out because it's like, I still costs are going that way, is for the red iron. This one particular has to do with, you know, if you remember a couple years ago, I was talking about the joist and deck and we couldn't get them. Google was buying a bunch of them, Amazon was buying like. And so what I think is happening in the joist and deck world is they had so many people freaked out, they would put in orders for speculative jobs that maybe never happened. And so that helped this scenario. But it's not like everything's not doing this. There's still kind of some spikes, but I think in general, the marketplace is getting a little bit out. Labor costs obviously aren't going the right direction, regardless of the industry, but on material, there's some areas where we're seeing some stuff. So when we put out the bid docs, we're actually gonna have some language in there that says, you know, like for flooring, for example, this is gonna get bid in February and March, and we're not gonna get that flooring for like 18 months. But we're gonna have language in there that if you would like to procure that early to lock in better pricing and we can pass the savings on to the district, let us know what that savings is. And we'll work with you to figure out if we wanna have you buy it and store it somewhere for a year and a half versus wait. Make sure to buy it, so.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Dave.
You want to stay up here? I don't think it's necessary, but you're welcome to.
The next document is one that Jay keeps track, keeps updated for us. Rebecca, if you wouldn't mind opening up the one that says maintenance work tracking detail. So it's just a reminder, we do show this to you every month that we meet. And Jay keeps this current. You had requested to see the more detailed version that has all of the projects listed. If you want to slide, just first of all, on the top, thanks, Rebecca, the top part of it. Where we're allocating the resources towards it. I had mentioned before, funds allocated from contingency or interest. That was the 1.1 million was the heritage guaranteed maximum price when we pulled 1.1 million out of it. For this exercise, we're now including to show what the targeted interest is. Again, since we had the conversation of our goal of keeping all of our interest funds at the district, we're putting that in so you can see the total amount. That would mean as of today, we would feel comfortable, you know, approving up to that level of maintenance projects. Obviously, we haven't, but that's just kind of a tracking of the total dollars. Rebecca, if you wouldn't mind sliding down then to page 2. So basically, you can see approved. Jay's just continuing to update these as we go, what's getting approved at each of the meetings. And we'll continue providing this at each facility committee meeting. So you can keep your eye on the big picture for maintenance, but then yet see everything that you've approved since the beginning of the project.
Great. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And speaking of projects, I just wanted to mention that John, myself, and Scott are going to each building to meet with the principals to work on developing a capital maintenance project list for February, potentially still in March, depending on how long it takes to put it all together. So you're not seeing today any particular requests from the buildings because we're going through the process of putting that together. But you will see that at a future meeting. Today's requests are related to district-wide maintenance requests. And I'm going to ask Rebecca to pull those up, and I'm going to turn this over to John to walk you through what's on this list and why we're putting in these requests. John?
Thanks, Steve. So this list shows a few of the items that have come to light. The first item for athletics is a power assist unit to move our bleachers. In the future, we'll have, like Steve said, either February or March, we'll have we'll have quotes to replace these portable bleachers we have at the high school. They don't work properly, the pumps are bad, which we've already replaced, and they're damaging our floor. But a stopgap in the meantime, which would help with the portable bleachers and our other bleachers in our buildings, are this bleacher boss unit. It's a powered assist unit that helps us move bleachers. So even when you do see the portable bleacher pricing coming in the future, we'll still be able to use this bleacher boss product in all of our buildings. It's mobile and it will help from damaging our floors, and it's super hard to on our labor teams to move these bleachers. They're really heavy and honestly dangerous. So that's the bleacher boss unit, and the cut sheets for all these items you see in yellow are down below in this document. The second item, robotic athletic field painters. So Ben's also here, so yeah, looked at field painters. This would alleviate some labor times out on our fields. Painting complex fields like lacrosse is super time consuming. This would also help with painting practice football fields. So we had this unit demoed and it looked really well. And that again would alleviate our guys from spending time painting the fields. Very time consuming. The water reel with booster would help us irrigate our fields. We there's a challenge for us every year to keep our fields looking good and green and having them be watered, especially last year with the droughts we've had. So
Where's that used now?
Ben, if you want to talk about the existing one we have, it's
Yeah, so it currently gets used at JV baseball field, keep that watered. Still trying to find a way to get it usable at the varsity, well, the JV softball field now, but that's across the road. But we use it also on the new varsity softball field as well. And then I've made it possible to use it at the middle school heritage middle school practice football fields. So the one inside the track.
Thanks, Jay. And then Ben and I also looked at robotic mowers. So we had Husqvarna come up and give us a demonstration of GPS powered robotic mowers, and they actually cut part of the JV baseball field while we were up there and did a good job again alleviating the time from having our guys in those fenced fields. They can be doing something else, weed whacking, painting curbs, or other tasks that we have. So we have actually, it's noted 4 robotic mowers on this. We could let them loose on varsity, JV baseball, the new softball, varsity field, and the football practice field at the top of the hill. Again, super time saving. Questions on the robotic mowers?
They're working all the time, every day?
So we can set them to the time that we want them to work. So we can set them to start working at 6 p.m. and run overnight if we want. They would house themselves in the morning, they house themselves in charge. And whatever, I guess the concept that we're looking at is hopefully having them go into the sports complex building. You guys were calling it the concessions building if that's soccer. To house themselves there and charge when they're done mowing during the day.
What's the useful life on this?
I don't know the useful life on them often. So they're controlled by GPS. We would mount a GPS unit on top of the sports complex building, and that would control all 4.
I would submit that we just approve this. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, looking for approval of the list.
Is the John Deere a replacement or an additional tractor?
So this would be a replacement. And then actually in a future meeting, we'll look for 1 more of these mowers. And hopefully that'll kind of put us where we should be in the district for replacing some of the older machines that we have now, or the older snow tractor machines that we have now. Newer machines are just agents really quickly, and really hard to operate.
Any other questions on the list? If not, we need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you, John, and group for analyzing these. The HVAC project,
So we are going to bring this back at a future meeting. We've been having discussions with continuing our prioritization of HVAC projects, but we are going to hold off on that for this meeting and continue to work on that, bring something back in the near future. And then the last agenda item today, we're gonna ask Brian to help with that and John to talk about our, thank you, Jay, talk about our staffing situation at the high school and some potential solutions to that. So I'll turn it over to John and Brian, and then Rebecca, you could also bring up the attachments that we could review at some point as well. But Brian, you maybe want to just review the current staffing situation at the high school?
Yeah, we actually in December alluded to, at that point, we had 2 custodians resign from the high school. Which is, again, our high school is a 10 custodian crew, 10-person crew. And then we had actually, shortly after the meeting, 2 additional custodians resigned. So that leaves us short at the high school by a sizable amount of staff. And so that leads us to some concern. We have been attempting to hire custodians now for a couple of months again, and we're really struggling with having individuals even show up to the interviews that we schedule. They'll apply, we'll offer interview, they wouldn't come. And so it leads us to some concern, because we have been in this position before where we had a significantly short crew at the high school. It led to some real stresses for those that remain. And so there's a few steps that we've taken internally. I've had an opportunity to have exit meetings with the custodians that are leaving to get some of their feedback of what some of their reasons for doing so were. And there's a variety, but there are some things that we can look to address to try to make the situation better for all of the crew. We've also had conversations about how do we maybe make a more cast a wider net, and if we would perhaps go into some different types of employees that we've had before. And when I say that, speaking of, do we go into target marketing into certain groups? Maybe those that are English is a second language. Do we target marketing for those that have individual needs or disabilities that still allow them to do the essential functions? Do we look at changing our structure of our interviews and offering an interview to every person that applies, and starting it with, if they come to the interview, they're going to get some strong consideration, and then we'll go from there. So there are some things that we're looking to put into place to do those things, but we also have to recognize that we have not, and actually the crew of 4 that had resigned, the last 2 had resigned effective over break. And so we've never, at this point, had a situation where we've been able to hire 4 custodians in this short of time. And we would like to, but it hasn't happened yet. It doesn't mean it won't, but the past is at least some good indication of what we're probably facing. So what we've put together here is a potential short-term stopgap to try to bring in a contracted service to support those employees that we have remaining at the high school while we continue to hire. And again, we're looking for a short-term stopgap. We don't want to switch to contracted services. We do like to have our own employees. We do like that consistency, we like that control, and we like the quality that gives us. But, we've started to explore this. John has been able to collect one, potential bid. He's got us, he's got another request out, and then I'll kind of have John speak to these. He's worked closely with these folks. But this would be, again, a stopgap, because I know that was a big concern of this committee a number of years ago when we had this topic also brought up. We don't want to go this route, and I will say it now in public, and I'll say it to any custodian or any member of the public. It is something that some organizations do. I don't think it's our best option at this time, but this would help us to get back to where we can take our building, most busy building we have in the district, is used probably 360 days out of the year. And it has the most students, the most staff, and we can make sure we keep the quality of cleaning high and while we're making sure we are staffed as we need to be.
So a couple questions. One, we invested for you invested in equipment. And that was apparently a labor savings. One, that work.
Yep, so the pieces of equipment you're referring to, Jack, are the backpack, battery powered vacuums, which I think that's created a time savings definitely throughout all buildings. You're moving away from cords, it was too hard to manage cords at the very time. So I think that's helped for sure. And during that time, we were looking to use our labor to get more done. I felt we were short and constrained then with labor, so I think that has helped. The second item with hardware was a machine we call CC17. It's a machine that sprays restrooms and can be faster and more effective than most machines have used. So I think they have helped, and other equipment too that we used during the pandemic is super helpful. And so I think it has helped. And so to answer your question with regards to that.
And would you use this kind of as a way to, we haven't been able to keep jobs, right? So we're either 1 short or 4 short or 5 short. Would this be kind of a flex so that, when somebody leaves, we can extend like a 1-month contract or whatever to have these people come in? Is
So
that a
when
possibility?
When I was talking to Clean Mark and the other company has covered all their things in square footages, fixture counts, yet counts, they tend to gravitate away from having ad hoc services simply because it puts a strain on their labor resources that they bring in. Their labor resources, when they don't know where they're going from one day to the next, it's hard for these companies to keep that labor on board as well. So they're really looking for a longer term contract scenario with Clean Mark, which they're actually a provider of some, in the past, been a provider of some of our products and equipment. They're willing to do 3 months as a minimum term, just because again, it provides some stability for their workers that they would bring on board. But I cover all the state.
I think if I'm understanding your question right, Jack, what we would be looking to do is as we're hiring, again, so these, as John is describing, these folks would be static in use at the high school. As we would be continuing to our hiring efforts and as we're bringing individuals on, we could use though, we would not stop and wait for this. We would hire and in hopes, right? In hopes that we'll actually have, the positions filled by the time this contract ends. In that time, what we would do is we would flexibly move the new hires into areas of need. Whether that would be at another building, like for example, we have a custodian that's taking a leave in January. We could hire someone, put them, hire and designate them to be a high school custodian, but have them fill that opening in the meantime until the gap opens up at the high school to have them slide in. But as John kind of described, we've not yet found a service that's willing to kind of be on call, if you would. They want a more defined, work group.
Right, out with the coverall quote that I don't have yet, they were amenable to considering as we hire people, that they could drop people off of this contract. So for example, if we hire 4 from the service crew and hire a full-time temporary employee, they would consider reducing their staff to 30, for example. I don't have that in writing yet. Again, that's the other. It's, I'm at least putting it out there for them to consider their flexibility with our hiring.
Well, this is the same coach, same company. 6 months ago.
And the piece I think we're looking at is we need some tools to use to kind of fill some of these positions in the job market where you're not just, where the workforce isn't there to fill the need. So like Brian said, we're not looking to outsource any of our custodians on a temporary basis or on a permanent basis. We're looking to kind of fill some gaps and have something that we can utilize as we go forward to make sure that we don't further lose people because they get exasperated because they're overwhelmed with now having more work to do and needing to fill in some of these positions to help out. So we really feel it's a pretty critical piece for us to have this in our ability to have some flexibility in staff.
Make the motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Thank you.
That looks like the bushy agenda. Do you want to talk about future meetings or at the board meeting Monday?
Yeah, I'm just gonna request, the committee continue to meet monthly prior to the regular board meeting. We will have a more extensive, our intent is to have a more extensive list and to share with you what we're hearing from the building principals and athletic director, at the next meeting. We may not have all of the pricing on everything. I know Scott's working hard to try to put together as much as he can from our meetings. We'll have as much available to you as we possibly can. We're also on a parallel path working on the energy efficiency topic that we talked about at the last meeting. So we're hoping to bring quite a few things to this committee between February and March.
And we'll schedule Monday night.
Yep.
Okay, so motion to adjourn,
Motion.
second. All in favor, say aye. Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
You have 5 minutes. Listen.